The film opens with a tense conversation. Through military radios, soldiers panic as they report a sudden attack by mysterious creatures spreading across the globe. This is the town of Nederland, Colorado. Most of it has been destroyed, but everything above 8,000 feet in elevation remains completely untouched. Despite their efforts, the military is quickly overwhelmed. 3 years later, the remaining humans have found refuge high in the mountains, as the monsters cannot ascend above 8,000 feet. In the Colorado Rockies, a small town shelters a group of survivors. Among them is a boy named Hunter. Venturing below the safety line, he uses binoculars to catch glimpses of neighboring settlements, perched on distant hills. On his way back, he notices a shadow trailing him, glowing red. A monster has caught his scent. Hunter sprints uphill toward the clearly marked safety boundary. Just as the creature closes in, he crosses the line, and the monster stops pursuing. Back home, Hunter recounts the encounter to his father. Furious, Will scolds him for risking his life, a reminder of his fragile lungs. They might have failed during the chase. He relies on oxygen each night, and later goes hunting with Katie, a friend of his late wife Tara. He explains that Hunter often crosses the boundary to see other communities. Katie expresses sympathy. Hunter misses being around people his age, longing for someone to play with. But Will adds that it's not just about loneliness. The place Hunter visits is where he last saw his mother. Tracking a deer, Will and Katie successfully capture their prey. They begin their return with the prize. Along the way, they notice their neighbor Nina, experimenting with homemade armor-piercing rounds. She's testing them on a piece of the monster's tough bone, a nearly indestructible scale. Before the apocalypse, Nina was a brilliant, dedicated scientist. Now, she dreams of finding a way to kill the monsters. That night, hearing his son's oxygen machine beep a warning, Will quickly replaces the filter so Hunter can breathe. Born prematurely, Hunter has underdeveloped lungs that could fail at any moment. Realizing their filter supply is critically low, Will decides to risk a deadly trip to the lowlands, specifically to the town of Boulder, where he believes the hospital might still have supplies. The next day, he spends time with Hunter, teaching him how to protect their potato plants and how to fish properly. It's Hunter's birthday, so Will visits the town store and buys the last package of macaroni and cheese, Hunter's favorite dish for a special dinner. As they eat, Hunter laments his lack of social interaction and asks why. They don't use radios to communicate with others. They explain that power is barely enough to keep Hunter's machines running. They stay connected to other shelters by using signals. After dinner, Katie stops by with a few beers. Sitting on the porch, they reminisce about their carefree lives before the apocalypse and watch Nina's latest experiment. Later that night, Hunter suffers another respiratory attack, forcing the use of an emergency syringe. With their machine's filters depleted, realizing he's running out of time, Will goes to Nina's house in the middle of the night. From their conversation, we learn that Nina had once traveled to a lab to gather chemicals and equipment, for it was during that trip that she conducted research on weapons to fight the monsters. Will's wife Tara was killed. He would harbor deep resentment toward Nina, as her actions led Tara to her death. However, because Nina was the only one who returned alive from such a journey, he would ask her to accompany him to the hospital. Nina refused, calling the idea utterly insane, as the creatures would tear them to pieces. Will insisted she owed him a favor for Tara's sake. She pointed out she had nothing left to lose. Will left believing she would ultimately come with him. After Will departed, Nina began crafting a special compass. She couldn't shake the memories of her last trip when she witnessed the monsters slaughter her friends, including Tara. Nina was suffocated by guilt. Eventually, that guilt drove her to agree to the mission. She went. Will asked a local woman to watch over Hunter for 5 days, while he risked the journey to retrieve the filters. The next morning, stocking up on weapons at the armory, Katie found Will there and confronted him for leaving without a word. Will believed he'd die if he wandered off. Determined, Katie grabbed a gun and insisted on joining the expedition. Nina was already waiting outside. She warned Katie that monsters were nearby, completely different from the ones she'd seen atop the mountains before. They could tear through crowds effortlessly. Bullets wouldn't stop them. The only way to slow them down, even for seconds, was to shoot them directly in the face. Before they left, Will told Hunter to promise he'd return in 5 days. Hunter bitterly reminded him that was exactly what his mother had said before her fatal journey. Nina and her group set off along a predetermined route, aiming to minimize their time below the safety elevation. To save time, they planned to ride a ski lift to quickly traverse the lowlands. Along the way, tensions simmered between Nina and Katie. They openly expressed their disgust disgust toward each other. Nina's attitude frustrated Will. He knocked a bottle of alcohol from her hand. When they spotted a wrecked military convoy below, they decided to descend and scavenge the abandoned Toyota Land Cruiser and the soldiers' remains for supplies. As they walked down the path, Nina explained that her compass could detect monsters within half a mile by sensing their magnetic field, stronger than any creature on the planet. She handed the compass to Katie, tasking her with keeping watch. While Will searched for equipment, Nina dug out a scale from an armored monster for further study. While scavenging, Will found an underbarrel grenade launcher, but admitted he had no idea how to use it. Katie confidently took it and attached it to her rifle. They prepared to continue their journey, but first, a heated exchange erupted. Nina accused Katie of flirting with her dead friend's husband. Katie fired back, blaming Nina for Tara's death. The argument escalated into a physical fight before the group reluctantly moved on. Along the way, they encountered a large herd of wild horses, a sign of nature thriving. The lowlands were uninhabited. Eventually, they reached an abandoned ski resort. The ski lift would take them to the next mountain. Nina noticed a monster on the compass, very close. Warning lights flashed in the forest behind them. Katie wanted to run to higher ground, but Nina thought there wasn't time. Will sided with Nina and sprinted to the elevator control room to activate the lift. As the monster closed in, Katie fired a grenade from the launcher at it. The explosion temporarily slowed the creature's advance, but didn't harm it. Katie and Nina took defensive positions, firing at the approaching monster. Will succeeded in restoring power and starting the lift. He and Nina jumped onto a chair and began ascending. Katie, now higher up, climbed a support pole and leaped toward the moving elevator. She barely grabbed the edge of the chair. Then he would grab her arm and pull her up. Just then, the monster extended a tentacle. It struck the cable. The resulting shockwave violently shook the chair. All three of them tumbled to the ground as a result. Fortunately, the fall wasn't too severe. They scrambled to their feet and sprinted toward the safety elevation. They reached the boundary. The monster stopped at the edge, unable to come closer. That night, the group took shelter in one of the resort houses. Before bed, they shared a bottle of whiskey. Nina explained how the creature's initial attack had unfolded. Humans never stood a chance to discover their weakness. Seeing them up close was entirely different. Humanity collapsed in just a few days. She revealed that the monsters only attacked humans, ignoring animals completely. This challenged the idea that they were predators, hunting for food. They didn't consume their prey. They were simply exterminating humanity. Even more puzzling, no one had ever seen them sleep. Nina found that strange too. The creature's numbers were strictly limited by altitude. They couldn't climb above a certain height before nightfall. Will recalled a conversation he'd had with Tara before her fatal trip to Boulder. He tried to dissuade Nina, accusing her of being driven by selfish ambition to immortalize her name as the first to kill one of the monsters. He believed Nina, having no family of her own, couldn't grasp the value of life. He claimed she was willing to lead everyone to their deaths to achieve her goal. Tara hadn't listened. She'd had no family she never had. It was only a matter of time before he ran out of resources. It would take at least a year to filter these filters. The Reapers would still be there. The next day, the trio reached the mine entrance, a tunnel cutting through the mountain, leading out the other side. Nina was both shocked and furious. The Will hadn't warned them about this route. She reminded him that both the entrance and exit were above the safety zone, but the tunnel's middle section sloped downward. Numerous branches extended even deeper below. Given that these monsters emerged from underground, navigation would be effortless and convenient. This route left them at a clear disadvantage. They came from underground, they were built for it. They could see in the dark. They could detect even the faintest traces of human breath. Worse, her compass didn't work properly inside the mountains. Despite the risks, they donned helmets with flashlights attached and descended into the mine. At the far end, they found the exit locked. With no other choice, they climbed down a ladder into the tunnels below, searching for another way out. So what would they do when they reached the bottom of the valley? Would they start sprinting? They'd only exhaust themselves and make too much noise. Even worse, their carbon dioxide emissions would triple. The monsters could track them from a mile away. In one of the corridors below, they shielded their flashlight beams with their hands and spotted a faint red glow, then ran. Katie fired a grenade toward the entrance, hoping to block it with debris, but the explosion barely slowed the creature. The group squeezed into a narrow crawl space. They turned off their flashlights and held their breath, avoiding releasing carbon dioxide. The monster was searching for them, probing the air with its tentacle sensors. As the creature drew closer, they lit a torch to distract it long enough for the group to crawl deeper into the tunnel. Katie took the lead, but suddenly, she encountered another monster, waiting in the darkness. It impaled her with a tentacle and dragged her into the shadows. Will and Nina were devastated, but there was nothing they could do. They found a ladder and climbed out of the mine to safety. He briefly mourned Katie before continuing toward the ranger's cabin, where they planned to spend the night. Meanwhile, back at home, Hunter discovered a package of macaroni and cheese, his favorite food. He recalled how many times he'd made it for his son. There was always someone asking for it. It was the casein in the cheese, the protein from milk. It acted like an opioid, its addictiveness comparable to morphine. They sat around the fire as Nina shared her hypothesis. The monster's scales generated an electromagnetic field. If she could design a bullet that disrupted that field, it might cause the creatures to explode. A pellet, a bullet bonded with perlite. Theoretically, it could strike them. It would create a 1,000,000-volt difference in an instant, uncontrollable. However, she'd need lab chemicals to test her theory. Will dismissed the idea as absurd, but regretted his wife's death and tried to help Nina with her wild theory. This was what Tara had been working on all this time. It was practically a magic bullet. This wasn't magic science, it was a guess, a hypothesis. In the morning, Will and Nina took the ranger truck and drove toward the safety boundary. They sped toward the city and the hospital they needed to reach. They raced to the hospital. Upon arrival, they cautiously entered, searching for the medical supplies warehouse. They moved silently upstairs. They found the storage room, but the shelves were empty. Hearing suspicious noises below, they pressed onward and eventually discovered another storage area. The filters he needed were all there. He filled his backpack. Nina, meanwhile, nervously noticed nearby monster activity. On her compass, they headed for the exit. The creature crashed through the wall, trying to find them. The two scrambled down to the next floor, but a tentacle burst through the wall and wrapped around Will. Nina grabbed him and swung a fire axe at the tentacle. They activated the fire suppression system for cover and fled down the hallway. They found a storage room filled with oxygen tanks. Will devised a plan. He ordered Nina to run while he set a trap. Waiting for the monster to charge, he fired a precise shot at one of the tanks, triggering an explosion. The blast hurled the creature out of the building. Nina, who hadn't actually left, insisted they take a detour to a nearby lab, instead of returning straight to the mountains. Nina explained her determination. Will reluctantly agreed. They drove off, unaware the monsters were stirring. Back at the lab where Nina once worked, she returned. She seemed more confident. She worked on chemical experiments, studying substances, to coat the bullets with various materials, and tested them against monster armor fragments. They explored the facility. Will stumbled upon Nina's old office. Then he found a family photo. Shocked, he confronted her, saying he hadn't known she had children. Nina admitted she'd lost them in a monster attack because she'd gone to work that day, even though it was her day off. She confessed she'd been consumed by guilt for not dying with them. The initial experiments yielded no results. Frustrated, Will suggested they leave, but Nina insisted he should go alone. She planned to stay and keep working. If she succeeded, she promised to drive after him. The truck had been sitting idle in the parking lot, collecting dust. Will wanted to help, but Nina pleaded with him not to risk his life for her. This was her responsibility alone. Besides, Hunter needed the filters. Without them, he couldn't function or survive. Nina refined her process, using a blowtorch to help the coating on the bullets dry faster. When the compass needle stopped spinning, signaling the monster's arrival, she noticed some rechargeable batteries and decided to add cobalt, a material used in creating powerful, heat-resistant magnets, to her mix. She succeeded. Her first cobalt-coated bullet. At that moment, a monster crashed into the building. She took aim and fired. Meanwhile, the ranger truck would speed toward the mountaintop, but the tire blew out, causing the vehicle to skid, slam into a boulder, and flip over. Will lost consciousness. He woke up at night. He heard a monster's roar nearby and grabbed his backpack. He set off on foot, heading for higher ground and safety. The monster relentlessly pursued him, crossing rugged terrain. As he neared the safety zone, another monster blocked his path. A third soon joined them, and the creatures closed in, trapping him desperately. Will fired at them, knowing it was a losing battle. Suddenly, one of the monsters dropped, motionless, and exploded into fiery fragments. Nina stood atop the hill, waving a cobalt-loaded rifle triumphantly. The bullets had short-circuited the monster's electromagnetic field, causing it to explode. Nina defeated the remaining monsters, revealing their robotic inner structures. The wreckage showed they weren't organic, they were machines. They were machines, programmed to target humans and avoid aircraft above a certain altitude. At 8,000 feet, it wasn't biology, it was programming. Their ultra-advanced design suggested an alien origin. Will and Nina returned to the village. Hunter embraced his father with tears. Nina raised a flag. The village pole now bore a skull emblem, the signal she'd discovered to fight the monsters. for other settlements to see. The good news spread via radio. The locals began building makeshift shelters and cobalt-coated bullets, using available materials. At the village monument by the river, Nina would place a bullet, its engraving bearing Katie's name, honoring her sacrifice. Together, they embarked on the journey to fulfill her dream, to fight back against the monsters. A volunteer squad, armed with the new weapons, descended from the mountains. The camera slowly swept across the landscape from a bird's-eye view as faint flashes of explosions glowed in the distance. The alien robots were being destroyed. Humanity had finally begun to strike back. The film ended on a hopeful note,